Good afternoon. My name is Roberto Rincon, and I'm the Associate Director of Research for the Society of Women Engineers, one of the member organizations of the Women of Color in Engineering Collaborative, or better known as the WCEC. I want to thank you all for joining today's webinar. For those unfamiliar with the WCEC, we are a collaborative of organizations who are working together to change the engineering culture. We envision a workplace where women of color feel a sense of belonging, are fully included, where they thrive and are valued as their authentic selves, are empowered to fully use their strengths to lead in positions of influence, innovate in their field, and mentor and champion others. It likely comes as no surprise to you, but research shows that women overwhelmingly perform the greater share of the unpaid caregiving burden, including childcare, elder care, household management, as well as the educational and emotional needs of those we care for. The COVID-19 pandemic only exacerbated this inequity, and these inequities can and do affect women at work. Studies show that women of color in particular felt an inordinate amount of pressure during the pandemic with regards to balancing school, work, and caregiving responsibilities. One thing we are now hearing from several women is that some employers who had modified their policies to accommodate a remote workforce during the pandemic are now reverting back to pre-pandemic policies. So today we will explore how we manage work-life integration and what employers and professional societies can do to make this integration more manageable. During today's webinar, if you have any questions, please enter them into Q&A or chat. We have set aside time later in the session to respond to questions from the audience. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in chat and comment on the discussion at any time. So now I want to introduce our moderator for today's webinar. Dr. Dinah Martinez currently serves as a director for the Research and Innovation Office at SHIP, and she is a key member of the WCEC project team. An industrial engineer by training, she was a faculty member at Northeastern University before joining SHIP. Dinah lives in Winter Garden, Florida with her husband and 2 young boys, so she understands firsthand the struggles associated with trying to manage caregiving and work responsibilities. Dinah, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the panelists.
Thank you so much, Roberta. And thank you to Felicia and Michelle for being here and having this conversation with us today. So I'll start by just asking you both to briefly introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your formal responsibilities at work. So let's start with Felicia.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on here. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Felicia Guerrero Green. I am currently living in Phoenix, Arizona. I am a mechanical engineer by trade. I got my undergrad and graduate degree in Las Cruces, New Mexico at New Mexico State University. I currently work at Collins Aerospace in the Actuation Systems Division. I'm part of a technology development group where we work on electromechanical actuators and harmonic drive kind of technology. I was added to the team in 2017, shortly after the birth of my second child, and I am a test rig design and test engineer. Basically anything they need me to do. So if they need me to mail something, I will mail something. If they need me to purchase something, I will purchase something. So I do probably a lot of it. I came from production to technology development, and that was kind of a strategy to stay in engineering if I can, and I can discuss more of that later. I wrote a whole article about it, so that's also out there. I am also currently a PhD candidate, and my area is in psychology, interestingly enough, not engineering, but my area of study is human performance. And my current dissertation topic is how does senior technical women engineers describe the influence of supervisor mentoring and coworker validation on their career persistence. So I got to practice that. Hopefully I'll give my dissertation defense sometime this year, and just getting through the title is kind of difficult. I also am involved in the Society of Women Engineers as the mid-career affinity group lead. Co-lead, I lead with Deb Williams, which a lot of you probably know and are familiar with. I also am a co-owner lead group, I don't know the title, manager of the Engineering Working Moms Facebook group. We have it's a online support group for engineering working moms, working as in doing everything. And we have about 4,500 international members of just engineering moms that support one another and just kind of help each other get through the grind.
Right. Thank you so much, Felicia. Now, Michelle, same question. Just briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your responsibilities at work.
Hi, so I'm Michelle Mora. I'm a first-gen Latina mechanical engineer. I obtained my bachelor's and master's from California State University, Los Angeles, not UCLA, Cal State LA. A lot of people get those two confused. I currently work in the power sector at Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. They're the nation's largest municipally owned utility in the nation. I'm in the power system. I've kind of been all over the place. I had 5 years of internship, and that was mainly in construction engineering. I moved over to private in the renewable sector, and then that transitioned me over to the power sector. I've done a few rotations in power plants, supporting power plants, and now I am in operations engineering, which essentially I work behind the scenes, ensuring that we procure the natural gas for all 5 of our power plants, along with integrating the renewables. There's a lot of integration of renewables that we must maintain the cost and the reliability of the power system. So we do a lot of analysis, not only plan out when those integrations are going to happen, but also how it's going to affect the grid, like overall. I integrate a lot of the applications that do a lot of this cost benefit analysis and optimization of all of our resources so that we conserve LA's load. I personally transitioned to a more office work because I knew I was going to start a family. And like Felicia, I wanted to stay in engineering. So this was the better option for me to stay in the field. I know that about 43% of women that are in STEM leave the STEM field, but we're here to show you that sometimes women are not leaving the STEM field because they're not interested. They're leaving the STEM field because they're working for companies that don't support their personal work-life balance. And there are companies out there. It's just a matter of finding the resources in the company that works for you.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. And that I think is a good segue to the next question, because we're talking right about how a lot of women have to leave not because they want to, but because, you know, that job doesn't quite integrates right with your family life as well. So can you both tell us a little bit about what your family looks like and what are some, in a typical day, I know every day is different when you have little kids, but in a typical day, what your caregiving duties look like at home? And we can start with you, Michelle.
So my typical day, I start work at 5 in the morning. So I'm usually up at 3:30. Right now I'm on maternity leave because I have a 3-week-old. But I have a 4, a 2, and a 3-week-old. I knew that once I started my family, it was going to be back-to-back children, leaving me to have limited availability to travel. I used to do some design just because as an engineer, you want to be out in the field. But one thing that I had to convince myself, and actually not even like more than convince myself, accept that field work is always going to be there, but raising a family is temporary, especially when the kids are in the newborn stage to 5 years old, where you're navigating this caregiver issues and you don't have a traditional school. You're having to either outsource daycare or lean on family to assist with you so that you continue being a working mom. So I transitioned over to more of a an office environment, and not only an office environment. I always tell this to my group: as long as I have a good boss, I'm not planning on transferring. Even though I know that there could be more growth opportunity, I'm always going to be able to grow, and that's something that you might pause a little bit your growth. But even within my group, I'm growing a lot, and I'm taking ownership of my work. And it's a matter of where you want to go ahead and put your resources in. For me, the caregiving perspective was very difficult. It's really, really difficult to put a newborn or a couple months old in daycare, especially in the Latino community. Like, grandma's not going to take care of your child, or the mom's not going to take care of a child. So it was something that I had to learn. I didn't really have many people that I knew that actually navigated the childcare industry, and the battles with that, the long wait list, how expensive it is, the drop-offs. I had to find a daycare that had an early start and a late start in case my day ran a little bit later. But there are daycares that are really, really good and very, very reputable, and we just have to accept that they're part of our village. Find a daycare that works for you and your family, and don't see them as the strangers. Build connections, not only with the teachers, but with the parents, because it'll make you feel a lot better of where you're dropping them off.
Right, thank you. Felicia, what do you think are the unique challenges that women of color engineers face when it comes to balancing those work and home responsibilities?
So I feel like I just want to talk that it all just gets stuck right here on every single topic that Michelle has talked about. But it was really hard culturally, I think, for me. I'm second generation Mexican American, and so I have the culture of my mom or my grandma or my sister are the only ones I would ever trust to watch my child. And so that was really hard for me to let other people into my trust circle. And that's probably where the hard part came in, because you go to a childcare center and, you talk to the main director and they're great, right? But then you go to that specific class and then that has its own culture. And then you go to a specific time because those are the teachers that are available during that time frame. And then that's a specific culture. So it for me was very hard to do those kinds of things culturally, but with the help of my husband, because he's an engineer as well, civil engineer, heavy civil engineer, and he's very logical, very pragmatic, very practical. And that was very hard for me to do, but it's a nice compliment for us to do both, have both. But where I also got a lot of my support was through the Engineering Working Moms group, where I had access to these other women who had already been through these kinds of experiences. And they're like, you have to go in, you have to interview, you have to try, give it 2 weeks, give it 3 weeks, test it out, you're more than welcome to go in there and check it out. So I had that unique support group that I had to create for myself. And all the other women within that group are also creating for themselves because they are intentionally seeking out those opportunities, right? One of my other Engineering Working Mom co-lead, Allison Peterson, she's here in the group too. So EWMs.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm also Latina, and there's that, back home, I would have had grandma and aunts and cousins to be able to help me out. But then here, just my husband and myself, and just wanting to, like Michelle was saying, keep investing on that growth. It's a hard balance.
Yeah.
So Michelle, I love that.
I love the baby head.
I
just
know,
sort of-
I
Those
know.
little
That
baby
is
heads.
so sweet. For you, like, what are your biggest challenges when having to balance work and your home responsibilities?
So I definitely have to say is letting go of some of the home responsibilities and outsourcing. I used to try to do it all, especially when it was my first one. I wanted to be the perfect mom, the perfect employer, and sometimes something's got to give. You're not ever going to give 100% at work and 100%. And I don't mean that you're going to show up and not put effort. I'm talking about I had to take a step back, and I told myself, you know what? I'm not going to go ahead and rush to climb the corporate ladder. I am knowledgeable enough, and probably one of the most knowledgeable members of my group. The only thing that is holding me back from promoting is that in the government agencies, you have to have a professional license in order to actually promote and rise the corporate ladder. I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to try to rush to get my PE license, and I spent hours studying for my license when my first was born, and then I felt really guilty. Like, why am I spending all this time away from my newborn studying to climb the corporate ladder when I am happy at my career? I'm still a successful engineer, and the title of a supervisor or a manager doesn't fully define my knowledge and what I bring to the table. So taking a step back and just being okay with that has been very, very helpful for my mental health. And the other thing is outsourcing things at work. I used to want to cook every single day, do all the laundry, clean my house. It was so taboo to even think about. My husband brought up the idea, like, we should hire somebody to come and help and do the deep cleaning. And I was all like, my mom used to do housekeeping. How would I pay ever somebody? The embarrassment that somebody has to come to my house. And last year I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and hire somebody once every 2 weeks to come and help. I'm going to go ahead and get a meal prep service. And it might not cover all the meals, but if it covers 70% of the week's meals, it alleviates some of the load. So I think that's what was challenged as a woman of color. Like, it's so difficult to hire and outsource things, but I think about it now, it's just part of the maintenance. Kind of like people hire a gardener. You don't really question hiring a gardener, or you question it less than hiring somebody to assist with cleaning the house. But the way I saw it, it's like I was hiring somebody to assist my husband with the outdoor responsibilities. We were hiring somebody to assist with the indoors. And it's not even, we're trying to suggest that because he's very, very hands-on as well. So also asking for help from your partner, because in a Latino household, you typically don't see that often. But communicating, having that communication and transparency in those hard conversations of like, hey, I need help doing X, Y, and Z of the chores, and this is how they're going to get split, where it doesn't just lie on the female.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Felicia, how do you think that employers and organizations, including professional societies, can better support women of color engineers in trying to achieve that work-life integration that we are talking about?
So I feel strongly on 2 points. The first point is to start acknowledging the invisible labor that women do. You know, putting together a grocery list, that's kind of tough for me because I have all these other things. But if I have to put together a bill of materials for, you know, a motor test, I'm like, oh, I like that. Like, I can do that. I'm not great at making meals or being creative with my cooking. So like Michelle said, I did a meal prep service, and that was amazing. They sent me all the ingredients. They sent me all the specific measurements of everything. And I was happy. My kids were happy. The family was happy. It was perfect. So it worked for us. I did get the eye rolls or the little, you know, the subtle cues from my family about, oh, you have a meal prep service. I'm like, yeah, I do, because I don't want to feed my kids McDonald's every day, because that's easy right there. But it's what I do and what works for my family. And it took me a long time to get there. But when you have 3 kids, you're just kind of in survival mode where you're like, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to keep me healthy, to keep my kids healthy, and to keep this like boat running, right? So acknowledging that the invisible labor of women is number one, what I think companies and organizations can do. There's been tons of research on cognitive load. So organizations, societies, they don't need much more evidence. I mean, there's empirical evidence out there saying that this is hard, right? So it's there. Let's acknowledge it, and let's try and think of some strategies to address that, to help that, to support that, which, I mean, we're here. We have great, solutions for that. The second biggest thing that I feel like employers, organizations, professional societies can do is, and I got this word from my friend yesterday, it's called congruency. Congruency between what you say and what your actions and your behaviors are. So we support women in engineering and all this, wonderful stuff. I hear the words, but there needs to be congruency in the actions and the behaviors. And I think that can start with, acknowledging the invisible labor that is there, and then further supporting that.
Right.
And, I talk about this for like women of color, women of engineers, but the amount of times I've had this conversation with my husband, who also wants to be very active in soccer games or, the jujitsu with the kids. He says that his favorite at home schooling was karate. And I'm like, no, that you're not going to teach our kids those types of things, but he likes to take on that. But he would appreciate all those things. He also kind of had a bad feeling about the meal prep service, but as soon as it came and we tried it, he was like, this is nice. Like, it took the load off of him as well, having to go to the grocery store. With 3 kids, somebody either watches the kids or goes to the grocery store, because you don't take 3 kids to the grocery store. You're going to take forever, in there. And it's just more energy and effort than you really want.
Right.
So, I do have 2 more points, which I think have already been said by Michelle. And if you want to chime in, Michelle, feel free, but just to offer flexible work arrangements. Don't take that away. That is helpful to all people. If you're a parent, if you're a caregiver of an elderly parent, adult person, if you have somebody that you're caring for as a partner or as a spouse, like this flexible work arrangement, don't take that away. It works. Are there times where in-person meetings are better than virtual meetings? Absolutely. But it's not an either or, it's an and, right? It needs to be both. So
Right.
Thank
you.
And my last point,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
like I told you.
Judith said 2 more, sorry.
I'm so sorry. Is to integrate work and childcare, or work and education, because those hours of 8 to 5 or 9 to 2:30 school times, like that worked out great back in the day, but this isn't back in the day, right? It's that needs to be updated.
Yeah.
It's very much outdated. So that's all I say on that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Felicia. Michelle, would you add anything to that, like on things that you think that employers and organizations could do?
So one of the things that I'm currently working on is starting an employee resource group. It's different than a professional resource group because we have organizations like the Women of Color and Engineering, and then SHIP, SUI, but I'm talking to an employee resource group. I'm in the process of trying a parents and caregivers together employee resource group that is specifically for the company that you're working at, because each company has a different culture. So a lot of companies and the government agencies, I've noticed that they're very, very army driven. Like, this is how it's done. This is how it's always done, and this is how it's worked. And they're very disconnected with how the world has actually changed. I mean, the amount of comments that I've heard, like, well, we went to school and paid and worked and we were able to pay. So, like, well, have you seen tuition rates today? Have you looked at the daycare cost? It's higher than the mortgage for one child sometimes. And especially when it's dependent on the geographic location. One of the things, I mean, I'm about 12 miles away from downtown LA, and the childcare cost there is almost double. And it's just because it's a very, very congested area where a lot of people are searching for childcare. So the employee resource group would essentially advocate not only to gain or bring back benefits that were removed, or bring some of the benefits such as childcare subsidies, tuition reimbursement, for some of the parents that want to go ahead and get further education but can't afford it because of childcare bills. Paid parental leave, because there's a lot of companies that still don't have paid parental leave. Resources, parental resources, and along with changing their policies such as flexible work schedule, reduced work schedule. There's some moms that don't want to work 40 hours and dads that don't want to work 40 hours. So starting an employee resource group that really, really advocates, and you would have to partner up with not only management up from the top, but it has the vision and mission of that such group has to fit everybody in your company, because you're looking at the greater audience. That's why when I tell people, hey, go ahead and take the lead and start an employee resource group, I always tell them, don't single yourself out. Like, I could have started a parents employee resource group, but parents and caretakers face similar challenges. Right now, we're in the sandwich generation where there's a lot of families that are building families while having to take care of the elderly parents. So having resources where you could also tap into for how do you navigate this caregiving situation with elderly parents, even if you don't have children, is going to actually create bigger traction for the companies to change some of their internal policies, and not only change the policies, but educate upper management, because some of these folks in upper management, they raise their kids in a whole different era, and they think that things are just how they used to be when they're not.
They're not. Absolutely. I think you and I were just talking about that 10 years ago. You know, the only way to create a support group was through Facebook groups, right? Like the way it is. But with your work that you're doing on Instagram and through social media, I'm blown away. If you guys don't follow Michelle on Instagram, go follow her and tell everybody, put it on your stories, because it's amazing education. Like, it's amazing information. Like, if I had a new baby, I would be like, okay, what next, Michelle? How do we do this, right? And the videos show that they show, you know, that social referencing, right? Albert Bandura in psychology is the guy that did social referencing. Like, that's how you learn, by watching. You don't learn by, well, I mean, you can. Here's a textbook. Here's your photo printed out copy off the copy machine. Like, go study it for 2 weeks. No, you can see it in a video or a live feed, right? I don't know how to do that, but Michelle does. Times are changing.
Yeah, but I definitely think that that's how companies can support, is by being open-minded, getting educated by the people that are going through the experience and navigating. Like, one of the things we talked about, daycare. Last year, people think I'm crazy. I changed my kids' daycare 4 times because of lack of transparency, because I didn't trust their stuff. I mean, I had challenges, and I was very, very open with my employer about it. And the funny thing is that it could be that you could work for this large company, and depending on your manager, the manager might,
Yes.
some managers are more understanding than others. And my management was, I'm fortunate enough to work for a management that is very, very great. But I always say, I work for the people. The type of work, I could learn anything. But if I have a bad manager, I'm moving. I'm leaving. I know what I could bring to the table. If they don't work with me because of my work-life balance situation, then they're not the only company out there. And then for women of color, I always tell them, we're a hot commodity. Everybody wants to hire us. So don't settle for a company that doesn't value you, especially as you're building a family, because it's very, very challenging to build a family and navigate just not only being a woman in engineering, but overall a working mom. I mean, it's definitely difficult. So you do have to be your biggest advocate and find a company that works for you, like I say. But an employee resource group is definitely one of the things I'm taking lead on that. And my goal this year, when I get back to work, is to be an officially recognized employee resource group for parents and caregivers, so that not only we bring back benefits that got removed throughout the last decade, but also change the policies such as flexible work schedule, reduced work schedule, some of the policies that just don't make sense. There's a lot of gray area that is subject to interpretation, and we want to make sure that that's cleared out, because like I said, there's some managers or supervisors that lean one way versus the other, and you want to remove anything that's gray so that there's not, I mean, there's females in my company that have a whole different experience than I do, and it's very unfortunate. And we want to remove that gray area from some of these policies.
That's amazing, Michelle. I can't wait to see you being successful in that. I'm pretty sure you'll get it done, and that's very exciting. And we've had some movement in the chat of others that think that would be great in their own companies as well. One more question before we turn it over to the audience. One of the things that I always hear is that you need to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of others. So how do you prioritize self-care while, you know, still balancing work and your home duties?
I can start with that. Since the pandemic, right, I had a COVID baby, was maternity leave. My maternity leave ended March 23rd, 2020. And I came to work and my boss was like, get your computer, take some monitors, take your chair if you want, and then go log on from home. So I was like, okay, this is a little unnerving. So I had to deal with that kind of change as well. And what I have realized is that self-care is not something that I should negotiate within my life. Self-care is something that is a necessity, right? So I learned, if I don't prioritize self-care, if I just don't partake in self-care because I'm taking care of, you know, everybody else, everything else, I have a lower energy level. And then I take myself out of the game faster than I want to, right? So what I've also learned is that self-care is, to me at least, is not pedicures or massages or hiking or bikes. Like, that's nice. I absolutely love those things. But to me, during the pandemic, what I had to learn self-care is drinking water, praying, getting proper sleep, making sure I eat, making sure I get a shower by myself without any children telling or hanging out in the bathroom with, you know, eating healthy and having healthy boundaries with my children, with my parents, with my husband, with my friends. Like, that was also really hard for me to learn through the pandemic, is if you don't do those things, your body's going to do it for you. So there is just a shutdown point that your body will hit if you don't do those self-care things. So if you're not up and up, ready to go, then you can kind of throw progress out on parenting, working, any hobbies, right? If you're not taken care of first. So it kind of goes back to the you work to live, you don't live to work. Kind of thing.
Right. How about you, Michelle?
So, for me, big disclaimer, I'm very, very high, energy. I need minimal sleep. So I wake up and, about a week ago, I started doing this after I get birth. I wake up around 4:30 in the morning and I go to the gym when everybody in my household is sleeping, because that gives me additional energy to start off my day. I know a lot of people are like, well, how in the world do you wake up so early? I typically start work at 5. So when I return to work, I'm going to be waking up at 8:30, because that hour to me is very, very critical. You probably can't see, but I have equipment. I have a spin bike and a treadmill and weights in back of me, but I can't work out at home. There's no way. I can't motivate myself. I tried, and we invested into the equipment, and it was, to me, it just wasn't the same. I agree. I mean, the whole pedicure massage, I'll squeeze one in. Probably once a month, my husband will come out of work and grab the kids, and I'll go ahead. But that's not a realistic self-care to me. I want an hour to myself, and if that means waking up at the crack of dawn when nobody's bothering me, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with waking up and making that sacrifice. And one of these days, it's hard to wake up, but it gives me, once I'm done with that workout, I'm so energetic. It gets my day going. And the other thing, the way I see it is, as a kid, I need to stay active. I need to stay fit to be running after them. So one of the other things is, I don't like to be locked up at home. So we've gotten into the routine that the kids don't stop us from doing anything. We take our kids, we load them up, we go on hikes, we do a lot of the outdoor activities, including travel. A lot of people are like, how do you travel with all your kids? It's like, you know what? It's different. It's a different type of travel, but I'm not waiting till the kids are grown for me to do this. They're part of, they're integrating to my lifestyle. I'm not integrating to theirs. I mean, they don't have a lifestyle. It's the kids get adapted, and they're very, very resilient when it comes to, okay, let's go ahead and go. And we just load them in the car, go for a drive, go on some of our travels. And to me, that takes care of my mental health. I know a lot of people, a lot of moms especially, they stop traveling after having kids, and I refuse to do that because I know it would take a toll on my mental health.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I-
Thank you both.
I took my oldest to her first SWE conference in 2017,
Awesome.
and she was able to watch me present. She was
That's awesome.
6 at the time.
That's amazing.
And so that was pretty amazing to her, because she got to see all these other women engineers, and she now believes, men are the minority in engineering, because
awesome.
all she's ever really seen is women engineers.
That's awesome. That's great.
And she's always saying things like, well, mom can fix it. Dad, why are you taking that to the shop? Mom can fix it. She's like, Mom, don't you have friends that can fix it? And I'm like, probably, but I don't think they want to fix your
That's
toy.
very, very sweet.
And then when my son was 9 months old, I took him to a regional SWE conference in Orange County, and he was able to meet the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Francis Arnold. And he was 9 months. I was like, please touch him, Francis. Maybe he'll get some kind of Nobel Prize magic that will help him throughout his life. So I take the kids with me as well, Michelle, and it's hard, but they are just so consumed by the newness and seeing mom do this and seeing dad do this, and it's it opens up their world as well. So yeah. And thank you to SWE for accommodating that. I thought it was going to be weird where they were like, oh, who brings a baby to a conference? But one of the ladies from the late career retiree affinity group came right up to me, took my son and was like, I'm gonna go show him off to all my friends. And I was like, awesome, I get to have a warm breakfast and warm coffee. This is great. So it's cool that, you know, kids are accepted with it within the societies, because, you know, kids aren't something like that are gross or dirty or whatever, but they want to learn from anybody. They want to learn from and experience and talk to new people too. So that was a really cool experience that SWE supported me in.
That's awesome. That's great. So and we have some time to open it to questions from the audience. So if anyone has any questions that they will like to ask Felicia and Michelle.
There was a question in the chat asking for Michelle's contact information to connect. I know Felicia had mentioned the Instagram. So if you wanted to share that, that would be great.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I shared it privately, but I'll copy it over and share it public.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's great stuff. There's a few people that I follow on Instagram, and Michelle is definitely one of them. And it's kind of neat because they have this little like group of people. Like, I think you follow your female engineer and working mom notes, which is two really good resources for parents that are trying to get through. And I had a little bit of difficulty with the questions because I was like, oh, how do I differentiate myself as a woman of color to, you know, my friends who are lighter toned or what you would consider white. And a lot of the challenges are similar, but like I said, the culture, I think, is what I find different, a little different sometimes.
So Dinah ran into some technical issues. So she dropped off. She should be joining us back, but we do have a question. Mutushi, did you have your hand raised? Did you want to?
Yes, yeah. Let me lower my hand first. Yes, hi everybody. My name is Motushi Day. Let me start my video okay. So hi everybody. My name is Motushi Day. I represented SAMPI, Society for Advanced Material and Process Engineering in WCEC, and met many of you earlier, but just wanted to get introduced. So my question is, I met one very young engineer recently, and she asked me this. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to discuss this with you. She was asking that many companies have ERGs, and they talk a lot about ERGs and all in their website. But when you look for a new opportunity, how do you understand that what goes inside? Just from the interview, how do you feel that? Are they, as Felicia, you talked about, do what you say, right? So integrated. Yes. So there are many leaders who really does that. But how do you understand that internal culture? Is it possible to understand the culture?
I don't mind if I
go ahead, please.
The way I would approach it is the way I approached my child at daycare. You don't really know the culture until you try it. And I'm a firm believer of try it until it doesn't work anymore. And we are kind of, even the younger new hire engineers are in the advantage where, committing to a company for, 35, 40 years, that's not typical anymore. So you try it until it doesn't work anymore. And then, like Michelle says, you find something that does work for you. And unfortunately, you're going to have to hopefully you won't have to try many different places, but if you do have to try many places to get where you have to get and get where you want to get, then, keep at that. And that's what I'm finding with my doctoral research is I'm studying senior technical women engineers. So these are women who've been in engineering 10 years or more. And I see that they're describing their managers and how flexible and accommodating and future opportunity providing they are, but it's not that some of them weren't the first manager, right? They have had multiple managers, and they're like, oh yeah, I had that guy, and then I had this guy, and then I had this lady, and but now on my fifth one, like it's, you know, a dream come true. It's a match made in heaven. And so it's just trying and not giving up on the first one that doesn't fit, if that makes sense.
I'll go ahead and add to this, and I'll take my daycare situation as an example, because I really learned through this experience, and you want to make sure that there's transparency. I'll give you like a perfect example. One of the daycares that I went to, the owner wasn't transparent that she was the owner and acted like a regular teacher, and she didn't feel comfortable with parents communicating with each other. I should have known that was the red flag. So my kids were there for 6 weeks. I lost money. I pulled them out. I didn't even bother asking for a refund because I was already dealing emotionally with the having to navigate. I probably should have asked for a refund, but you know, sometimes you end up in a situation and you're just take your loss. But I made a list, and I actually made a post on my Instagram about this red flags of daycares, because nobody talks about the red flags of daycares and what people should be looking for. And one is transparency, communication with parents, the environment, how secure the facility is. It's the same thing with companies. And I'm very, very open about this. Whenever somebody comes and tells me something, I had an interview with a newscast, and I was dealing with PR, and they kind of changed some of my language, and I was all like, look, I don't feel comfortable saying this about the company because I don't feel that this is accurate information, and it's going everything against what I'm fighting for by creating this ERG. We are a great company, but we could improve. We're still not at the cutting edge of being supportive to working moms. And although it's still a way better company than a lot of companies that are out there, but it doesn't mean that we can improve. So when you're looking at a company, is one of the things that I tell a lot of young females, and actually a lot of young engineers that are looking for a better work-life balance company, is look at the benefits that they're offering. Look at the schedules that they're offering. A lot of companies are going back to pre-COVID. They're no longer allowing people to work from home. That's a red flag to me. If they didn't learn anything from COVID, that we could work from home, do our job, and just because somebody wants to babysit us our desk, that means that they distrust their employees. So there's look for all of that. Do they offer fertility treatments? If that's something that you want, there's a lot of companies that are now starting to offer fertility treatments. So if they have all this stuff at their mission and vision, but their benefits and policies don't reflect it, that's a red flag. So to me, that's just the best way to really observe how the culture from the inside, exactly, are they practicing what they're preaching?
All excellent points. Thank you. So I'll convey this message to her. And what I understand is that really need to look at their website, and also managers play a very big role. Whenever you are a people manager, your job duty is to develop people. So managers need to understand that, and more the companies talk about that. And we also in different professional societies talk about that, maybe the situation will improve. So thank you so much. I'll convey your message to the young engineer. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much. I apologize for there's like thunderstorms going on around now, Florida in summer.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. If anyone else from the audience.
There is one in the chat if you
Sure.
want to read that one.
Great. I lost the chat, so if you can go ahead
Of
and
course.
read it, Roberta. Thank you.
Bob asks, do you believe there were opportunities to work part-time and remain in technical roles or move into technical leadership positions. Bob, I'm not sure I understand your question. Can you unmute?
And so I got the as you described the work that you were moving into, it sounded less technical and more relational. I mean, coordination, building materials, that kind of activity. And I was curious about whether you saw a difference in the roles that you were leaving or what you wanted to move into, technical versus, and then the ability to do the technical aspects part-time. Is that
Is this question for me?
either one of you?
Oh, okay. So I specifically, in my career, wanted to stay technical. I didn't want to go the management path. I'm not into managing people. They're crazy a little bit. But technically, I saw no opportunity for part-time work.
Okay.
And if I did go technical and I stayed in the production realm of things, I would not be able to have the life that I wanted. Fortunately, knock on wood, I am currently in my dream job, which is technology development, which is very technical in nature. But I think what sets it apart is that my manager and my coworker are also part of the dream, right? They are just so supportive, and they have just this understanding of what it's like to be a mom. They are very, very active in their family lives. And so they understand parenting of moms and the invisible workload of moms. And so they get it. I don't know any better way to describe or explain that, but they get it. If this opportunity had not come up, I would have left engineering. I would have been out. And I don't, and the sad thing about it is I'm not in the minority, right? I'm in the majority of leaving engineering, because that's one of the biggest challenges. So definitely not the path of technical role, and absolutely not the technical leadership area. I don't see many women that are technical leaders, not just in my company, but also in just the engineering realm itself. And I feel that by me staying in this and probably having to become or do some kind of leadership is in my calling, because I do want, the next gen to see how to do it, even if it is hard, right? I want to get good like Michelle, and then make content so that they can see the path as it goes on, right? So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so for me, I guess I'll clarify my role. So a lot of people think that just the field groups are technical, but there's a lot of office groups that are heavy technical. So I'm in an extremely technical role. I'm actually a subject matter expert on natural gas and pipeline infrastructure, just because I've been dealing with this for the past 7 years. And there's been a lot of changes in the natural gas industry that actually affects the whole infrastructure, not only as you integrate the renewables, but as federal and state policies come into play. We actually have to have a lot of technical background in order to implement this and be able to make decisions based off of this that are not going to impact. Can I do this part-time? Absolutely. And the way I've proven that I could do this part-time and still provide my technical capabilities is I'm returning to work in 2 weeks, which is 6 weeks after postpartum, on a part-time role, because I gave birth preterm. So we had like an exit plan, because my first two were born at 40 weeks. This one was born at 35. And we could definitely stay in technical roles part-time. You just have to find the groups and the companies that allow that. And that's what we're trying to kind of like advocate for, that you don't have to be there 40 hours. I mean, you look at some of the staff at multiple companies that go to the office. a slacker is going to be a slacker whether they're at home or in their office. You see them walking around the building, chatting it up. Sometimes I get less work done when I go into the office because people come to my cubicle. My kids go to daycare for a reason, so I don't have any distraction. My coworkers are more of a distraction when I go to work, and I tell people, if you spend an hour a day every single time, you technically become a part-time employee. So you could definitely provide this part-time. And this role is actually really interesting because there's a lot of the natural gas industry is very, very a knit industry. So once you become a subject matter expert, not only can I remain in my company, but I could actually start my own firm and become a subject matter expert because there are new pipelines that are coming into play. There's a lot of knowledge in the natural gas industry as far as schedulers and gas procurement marketers that a lot of the folks that had been in this industry are retiring. So there's limited knowledge out there. That's why, like I always tell people, I'm a subject matter expert. Same to Felicia, like I want to pass my PE and I'm going to pass it. I'm actually going to study for it sometime this year because I have a 5.5% bonus I'm leaving on the table. I don't care to promote. And I tell my husband this, my husband's supervisor, I said, I don't want to be worrying about managing little humans at home and then managing adults at work. At least at home, I feel like I have a little bit more control.
Yes.
But with adults, you never know what they're going to bring. So I like to just do the technical role. Like, just give me my assignments, let me take care of it, and I'll give you the results. I don't want to manage people at work, and on top of that, deal with the paperwork that comes with it. Like, to me, that is non-technical. As you climb up the ladder, you remove yourself from the technical role, and I don't want to. I'm not at a point that I don't want to remove myself from the technical role. Does that answer the question, Bob?
Yeah, thank you very much.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Thank you so much, Felicia and Michelle, for your time and for such a great discussion. I think we needed 2 hours to go through everything. I think, there's a lot that has been done, but a lot still to be done. So I thank you both for your words of wisdom and advice. And I'll pass it to Roberta so she can close us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dinah. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to our special little guest, my heart. Thank you for this great webinar. And thank you to our audience for asking such great questions and engaging with our panelists. As we close our session, I want to encourage you to stay connected with the Women of Color in Engineering Collaborative. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet, please visit womenofcolorengineers.org to sign up, and I've put the link in chat as well. We'll have a link to this recording in our newsletter and on our website soon, so please keep an eye out for that and share it with others. Thank you so much for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. It was great.